It's the Queen City Music Podcast, the podcast devoted to the local music scene in Charlotte, North Carolina. Here's your host, Matthew Ablan.
Hello and welcome to episode 56 of the Queen City Music Podcast. This episode of the Queen City Music Podcast is sponsored by Middle Sea Jazz, Charlotte's premier jazz club located at 300 South Brevard Street in Uptown Charlotte. Stop in for Thursday night jazz jams, gospel Sundays every third Sunday of the month, or bi-weekly Wednesdays for Remember Wednesdays. But if you prefer, stay in for the evening and watch their Saturday night live stream, where you'll have access to the best performances Middle Sea Jazz has to offer. And if you want the VIP treatment, get a Baby Grand membership, where life takes you to a higher note. Tickets are now available for Marion Meadows on May 6th through May 8th, Carol Riddick on May 13th, Eric Essex on May 14th, Joey DeFrancisco on May 20th, and Marcus Johnson on May 27th. And please welcome our newest sponsor, Midwood Guitar Studio, Charlotte, North Carolina's own boutique guitar shop located in Plaza Midwood. Midwood Guitar Studio not only has the finest selection in boutique guitars, but familiar names like Fender, Martin, Taylor, Two Rock, and many others. Whether it's a guitar, bass, amp, effects pedal, or a much-needed accessory, the knowledgeable and friendly staff at Midwood Guitar Studio will help guide you in the right direction for your next purchase. And for all your guitar repair needs, Midwood Guitar Studio now has a luthier on staff. Visit their website at midwoodguitarstudio.com or stop in to see their unique shop at 1517 Central Avenue, Charlotte, North Carolina. I wanted to remind listeners that my recent release, You and Me, is currently available on all streaming platforms. Also, there are lyric videos available for several of the songs that you can view on my YouTube page. Please like and subscribe if you're so inclined. Also, if you'd like to learn more about me and all the things that I'm up to, head over to my website at MatthewAblan.com. There'll be a link in the show notes to both my YouTube channel and website to make it easy for you. This month, on episode 56 of the QCMP, I'm speaking with Jeremy Radio. He's one of the co-founders of Four Finger Records. Four Finger Records was established back in 2018 and is dedicated to working with local Charlotte bands. Jeremy Radio, welcome to the Queen City Music Podcast.
Hey, man. Happy to be here.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming out today.
Yeah, not so bad. Wasn't too far from my pad, actually.
Yeah.
So
I hate to tell a story, but I'll tell us a quick story before we get started.
Let's go.
So for you listening, Jeremy sent me an email from Four Finger Records about one of the bands on the label, Jude Moses, saying, hey, trying to get these guys, give them a little promotion. And I, being the diligent podcaster I am, said, Can you come on and talk? I want to have a record company on to talk to somebody.
Well, as someone that eats attention up, I'm like, oh yeah, I'd always rather go. Sorry, dudes.
So fill me in, Jeremy. What's your background? Music background, I guess, rather.
Yeah, man. When I was 11, started getting into skateboarding and punk rock and all the things that go along with that. And,
Sweet.
So I got a bass for Christmas that year.
Yeah.
Because, I think when you're really into Led Zeppelin, like, you want to get a guitar, sure, but you don't think you could be Led Zeppelin. But when you get into punk rock, it's like, not only do you want to get a guitar, but you also think, like, I could do that. I could book a show.
Right.
I could, like, it's a little more empowering, I think, especially going to see some band at a VFW hall. Like, I had no aspirations for rock stardom, but I'm like, oh, you just book a show and you play it and you write your own songs and they can suck or be awesome or whatever. And it's just fun with your friends and you have a good time. So that was all high school for me. But a lot of punk bands sing about touring.
Right.
It's like a big topic, and so to me that was just always the goal, was like start a band and get on the road. And I was from South Carolina, a really small town called Hartsville, and was like, all I ever wanted to do was tour since I was 11. That's all. So when I was 18, I moved to Charlotte.
Okay.
To try to find a band. About a year later, I'm working merch for some band on my first tour going to California.
Oh, wow.
And then I was home for a month, and then a band asked me to play bass for them, and we went back to California. So within a 2.5 month span, I went from never leaving the state to circling the country twice.
Wow. Oh, my gosh.
I loved every second of it. Breaking down in Houston and sleeping on a sidewalk and, like so many stories. And I was just like a little kid eating it up the whole time. And mostly what I've been doing ever since. Is just
So that's just pretty much your full-time thing. It's just doing the music.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
It's awesome, and I've been fortunate. Just I think right place, right time. I met a lot of rad musicians that were just starting out, and now a lot of them are doing okay for themselves, and they're working the road. And
right.
you know, if you can get to where you can play for a few hundred people every night, no one's getting rich, but you can all make a pretty good living from it. You know, but it's great. I'm just the hired gun. If they got to go do a photo shoot or an interview, I'm like, cool, we're in Portland. I'm going to go hang out and play pinball. You guys have fun.
So you've done a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
What do you have a preference of things that you like? Do you like recording stuff? Would you rather be on the road? Would you rather?
I'd rather be on stage every night. I love recording though, and I think for forever people wouldn't give me a shot because they're like, "Oh, Jeremy's the live guy. He's gonna, you know." I have a lot of energy on stage, and I'm, you know, I like to put on a good show, but they would never think to use me in the studio,
right?
You know, because it is a very different animal.
Oh yeah.
But I always wanted to, you know, do both. But it's nerve wracking sitting there doing they want to do bass last for whatever reason, and everyone's just like looking at you with their arms crossed, and you're like, the first few times you do it, you're sweating, so you're not going to do that great, you know, until you're comfortable. And I'd say for most of my 20s, I would get a little studio work, maybe for the bands that were using me a lot. But as I got older and into my 30s, I'm 37 now. Yeah. I feel like I probably started getting
about that for a second.
Yeah. Once you get in your 30s, it's all like nebulous. I feel like I started getting a little more comfortable and be like, hey, if they're hitting me up, they want me to play the way I play. They're asking me to do it. Like, I don't need to be nervous. And so I feel like I started to get a lot more studio work, so I really enjoy it, but I want to be in a sweaty club playing with the boys on stage, you know, like that's I'm a fish in water, you know.
It's, you know, people don't realize it is a different animal. Yeah. You know, I mean, if you just if you're an average listener, you think, oh, they're on stage or, they're, you know, they're recording, but they're just completely different environments. And the recording environment can be very, very sterile, very trying, very nerve-wracking. Not that the stage can't, but I mean, the stage is not sterile.
Yeah, no, it hits in a different way. And some people are really good at one and not the other, you know?
Right.
But yeah, it's just, in both cases, the only way to get good at it is to do it a lot. You know,
Yes.
you can tell when someone's just their first time on stage and they're like, they're about to throw up, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And you see it in the studio too, just was that take okay? You know? And now you get more confident. You're like, I screwed up, run it back. I'm good.
Yeah.
And you know, that's not a weird thing to say because you start to see people do it.
Yeah.
So I'll just say I like them both. I love the creating aspect of the studio and showing up like, well, I hope I have some good ideas. They didn't send me the songs ahead of time. Let's see how this goes. And you pull it off and they're stoked. And that's a very good feeling. But the best feeling in the world is walking off stage knowing that you just like steamrolled it. You go.
And it doesn't matter. I mean, just performing is a good thing. I mean, even if I don't have a large audience, even having one or two people come up to you during a break or something like that, and they just say, man, that was fantastic. That just makes you feel good. You know,
absolutely.
After the show, like, you just like, thanks, man. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. No, I've got to play because people are like, oh, I play the same whether it's for 15 or 15,000. Like, obviously that you can't do that because playing in front of 15,000 people is insane and it's awesome. It's just more energy. Yeah. But I will say I do enjoy it just as much, you know, because I got to do this really big tour with some artists, and like the next day, or the week after I got back, I played Snug Harbor with a friend's band, and there was literally 20 people there, and I'm like, I think I had more fun tonight than... It's just a different thing, you know?
I mean, when you play for a lot of people, it's a bit more nerve-wracking, you know, because you just... You'll get over it at some point, but I mean, if you're there, when you first walk out, I don't care who you are. Yeah. There's a little, oh my God, there's that many people. Unless you do it every night, you know, let's just say you're a large band and you're always playing the Rolling Stones. We've been doing this 50 years and we're playing a stadium and 50,000 people showed up and they're having a good time.
Used to it as you could be, you know? But no, like, you know, I think Jerry Seinfeld described it one time as, you know, he'd rather have a surfboard than a yacht. Yeah. You know, as far as his career goes. And playing like a 500 cap club with like a decent crowd in it, that's just, I get that more. It just makes sense. There's fewer parts. When I've gone out with artists and it's like, you know, a 20,000 person arena thing or something, and it's like I don't know where to stand. I feel like I'm in everybody's way.
Yeah.
Like, it's just such a different thing. I'm like, man, put me at the milestone.
But even being a smaller, going as a listener,
Yeah.
I enjoy clubs and I enjoy theaters better.
Me too. Absolutely.
I do not like. I don't want to pay $300 or $500 to see a band, and I've got to be 20 feet back.
Right.
Oh, excuse me, I shouldn't say 20 feet. I'm like 20 rows back, 30 rows back, and I can't really see them that clear. And then there's some drunk next to me, you know, and you're like, oh, or some. Sorry, I don't want to knock anybody, but there's some large person next to me, and I can't. I'm squeezing in next to them, and you know, I'm just like, theater settings a little more. The seats are a little nicer to sit in, and you know.
I mean, growing up going to like clubs and like I said, just seeing somebody at VFW Hall, it just makes more sense to me.
Yeah,
I saw the Stones going back to them on that Charlotte gig, because me and my buddy Leo were like, let's just go up and say, give us the 2 cheapest tickets you have, and they were like. $40, and we're at the top, and I've never been to a show that big. Yeah, you know, by a long shot. And I was like, this is crazy, but it was awesome. But I'm just I'm more used to, you know, to go to the merch table and shake the band's hand after. You know,
see,
so
I mean,
it's weird seeing like actual literal rock stars for one of the first times live for me.
See, I'm a little bit older. I'm 52 or 51. Excuse me, 52 soon enough. And I was from a period of time when I was a teenager and going to see bands, there were no video screens.
Right.
So when you sat, you know, I went to see bands and stadiums. When you were up, you saw, you know, like a little person, right, you know, there was no video screen for you to get a good shot on.
Yeah, because the Stones had a massive screen. I'm like, this is rad. You know, I see them kind of 1 inch tall running around down there.
But much to my point of going to see a big show like that, I don't want to pay a couple $100 to watch a video screen, you know, or even 40. Exactly. Like I could watch them on television and be home.
Yeah, I feel the same way about football games. I'm like, I'd rather like go watch it at the bar down the street if I'm just gonna watch on the jumbotron for 80. Yeah, you know,
and that's the thing. It's that's the enjoyment of it. But I guess music has become that large of a thing where we need to make money. We got to play for the most people we can. I'm going to charge for the most for tickets so that everybody can make some money.
Right. So. Yeah, and that's why it just, you know, I throw the word punk around a lot, but that's just where I come from. But just like local working band culture, it's like it's just so much more real and like visceral, and like, you know, just seeing some young band get on stage and just destroy it, and it's like then you find out after, oh, that was their second show. Like you guys were way too, like I love that so much more than, you know, I went to see Iron Maiden in 2019 and it was rad, but I'd rather see some band I'm watching for the first time at, you know, Petra's and get a mind blow out of it, you know.
Yep. And as a career, I got to say the one thing, I mean, if you're trying to do original music, of course you want to be a national and international act. I mean, that's just kind of the thing to tour. But for me, as I've gotten older, the one thing I've learned is I would much rather be a bigger fish in a small pond than a large fish, large fish in this large pond, or even a small fish in a large pond.
Right. Oh, absolutely, man.
You know?
No, my friends moved to Nashville, and it's like, no, hey, because some of them have done very well for themselves, and also like, oh man, it's like so much more competition. It's so harder to start a band. Like, I feel like when you move there and you kind of like a bass cat friend of mine was already playing with a bigger artist, but they didn't tour all the time.
Right.
He's like, I'm just going to go for it, move to Nashville. And he's been killing it because he kind of already had an in.
Right.
You know? But for me, it's like, man, if you start the same band in Charlotte and get attention, it's almost like, I don't know, it's easier, but also I feel like you might pop a little better, you know?
Yeah. And it's I don't know, there's just a certain thing. I mean, again, I'm not 22 trying to do it. When you're 22, there's a certain, you're building nostalgia for yourself at that time.
Sure.
You know, you don't have anything to base on. When you're 40 or 50 and you're doing it, you're like, okay, this works for me. I like being home. I'm all about my creature comforts, man.
Oh,
I don't,
get it.
you know, I don't want to be sleeping on a hotel floor. You know, I like my bed.
I love waking up and having to look at maps on my phone to see what day it is and what city I'm in. And then like, oh, is there coffee nearby?
Oh my God.
That's my sweet spot.
So we've been talking about all the stuff that you've been doing, but we didn't get to Four Finger Records yet.
Oh yeah.
So fill me in. What's Four Finger Records all about?
Yeah.
And how did you come to be involved with it?
Yeah. So me and Leo Solis, who's a local really killer musician and producer in town, we met through like mutual friends and bands and kind of just really hit it off. And, we just are constantly, it's funny. Once a week or more, we'd go to the Y and get a steam in.
Right.
And we would just like plot out all these ideas like two mob bosses, And one of them was like, we're in these bands, we're trying to throw more shows and do this thing. And, he's in a band called Solis. And at the time, my band was, the Rainiers. Which we still might do some stuff, but we slowed down. Everybody got busy. So we started to throw shows like Solis and Rainiers and some other stuff. And like, what if we started a label and it would be kind of fake, I guess, like, but all our bands would be on it.
Right.
And it would maybe make us seem more legit. And we just thought it was a funny idea. Four Fingers, comes from The Simpsons because they all only had four fingers. I don't know if you noticed that. And one episode when someone's shoplifting, he goes, 4-finger discount. So I think originally we were going to call it 4-finger discount records, and we changed it to just 4-finger.
Sweet.
So we kind of got a cool logo and made a website and printed some t-shirts out the gate. But then we realized, like, hey, we got some friends that we've known for a long time that are starting these bands, and they're younger as a band and also as people. And like, I've been touring for so long, and I've booked tours, and I've been the merch guy, and I've promoted them and made the flyers and printed the t-shirts. And Leo has been a producer for a long time and mixes and masters and has the studio. Like, we could actually like help some bands out maybe, and so we had this idea of doing a DIY or do-it-yourself record label where we're just going to work with our friends. It's handshake deals. We've never made a dime from it. Like, any money we make, even from shows, we give back to the bands. It goes back to print more, it's all kind of self-sustaining. So we started like, let's do a 4-finger night at Petra's, and Perry there's solid gold and would let us do our thing. And so, some people that maybe would come to see our bands one of these bands, it was like one of their first shows, and they got to play for a decent little crowd, and suddenly they're getting more press local than any of our bands. This band called The Wilt, really great kind of alt country band, and they're like 24, and the songs are so good, and they look good, and they play great.
Yeah.
And like, they played 2 shows, and they're getting like big write-ups and like Queen City Nerve and like, but so there was like, hey, maybe someone's gonna come check out The Wilt, but then maybe they'll like my band. And it just kind of felt like the wheels just kept turning with us. Of like, we got this little corner of, which I think is a very great music scene in Charlotte, that people we have relationships with that we've known since they were kids, or that we've toured in other bands together and we're all friends. Like, let's just try to document our little corner of it. Let's throw shows together. And since we started doing compilation tapes, where we do a big tape release and every band could submit a song. And cassette tapes are coming back. We'd sell like 100 of them. It's crazy. So it was just so rad to like, in 20 years look back on this tape and be like, man, I remember the year we made that, and all those bands were playing at the Milestone, and it was so much fun. And so it feels like we're kind of making these little time capsules of this cool little moment what we have right now.
Yeah, there's a old record label. I don't even know. I think they're still around, but Megaforce Records.
Oh,
they
yeah,
used to do that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
With the metal bands.
Metal Massacre, right? Yeah. Yeah, and that's a great case in point. And then, Discord in DC, and then you have like Fat Records in the East Bay.
Yeah.
And when I was in high school, like, they put out a new compilation, let me get it. And I would love all the bands.
Yeah.
So it's an old school, I guess, like way of getting word out on stuff. But it's just so much more like community, which that word gets overused. But, we just want to like support each other. And then, so sorry, Bunny Trail there. But kind of, so where the chips kind of landed with it as far as 4-finger, if there's a band we're working with, it's all handshake. And some of them want us to help them make their record.
Right. Like
with Leo and me, and we can recommend an artist, and this is where you should do t-shirts. And if you want to, I can help you plan, like put it out this day, give yourself 2 months. We'll hit up all the local press, podcasts. And some guys are like, hey, I got a new single coming out tomorrow. They just did it all. I was like, cool. That's great too. We'll post about it.
There you go.
So it's kind of like empowering these bands to like, we'll help you as much as you want if you have any questions. But if not, like, go do your thing, and we'll do a show next month. It'll be a lot of fun.
So how do you guys choose the bands that you're working with? Because first off, they're all Charlotte bands.
Yes,
we're talking
correct.
about.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah, so it's all just Charlotte. Yeah,
That's one thing I love.
Yeah,
is
me
just
too.
Promoting the local scene.
Yeah, and it's just like documenting it because it's like there's lots of rad bands in other towns, and people hit us up like, "Hey, we're from Charleston. Would you work with us?"
Right.
It's like, no, why don't you do what we're doing, but do it for Charleston?
Yeah.
You know,
I actually get emails from people all over the world trying to promote their stuff on the podcast, and I always respond.
Yeah.
But I always try to give a nice response and just say, hey, thank you very much for contacting me. The Queen City Music Podcast is just dedicated to the local Charlotte scene.
Absolutely, man.
So
it's like that should empower you to like go start a Charleston Four Finger Records, or your version of it. And but yeah, most of the bands we work with, it's come around very organically, like, because some people have hit us up like, hey, would you work with my band? And we're like, I don't know, like, we just kind of go with our gut.
Mm-hmm.
But in almost every case, it's someone we've known for a very long time.
Okay.
And so it just kind of makes sense. Like, this artist we've been working with recently, his band's called Siege, but his name's CJ Hardy, and we've known him he's probably like late 20s now, but I've literally known him since he was like 11 or 10. And even then he was playing in bands by the time he was 15.
Wow.
At Tremont Music Hall, like opening for my band at the time, and he was incredible. So like he toured in a band called Matrimony for a long time, and they were kind of like doing the major label thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of fizzled out as it does. And then he was in a band called Bash, and they were touring hard. But he's always been the side guy. So he's like, hey man, I love what you guys are doing. I want to put out my own record. I don't want to pitch it to the LA guys. I don't want to do that thing. Like, I just want to do a local thing, and I love the community and yada yada. We're like, yeah, let's do it. So we're doing like Leo's producing the album and helping him with it, and it's so good. Like,
that's awesome.
So it's most of the bands kind of have a story like that.
Well, do you know, out of curiosity, if there's any other record labels in town that are like you guys that are just devoted to the Charlotte scene?
No, there's some really great ones like Refresh and Self-Aware.
Yeah.
But really, like, I feel like they do what we do way better, but they cast a little wider net, I think.
Right.
It is, I would say, in both cases, mostly Charlotte, but not exclusively.
Interesting.
Yeah. And they may have even started to doing something similar to us, but I think both cases, they're really good at what they do and doing like a package for the bands and like the vinyls and everything. And it's really rad. And they've both been very kind to us and answered questions and stuff. But I think they set if a band blows them away and they want to work with them, they don't care where they live, I think. Ultimately.
Right.
Yeah. So, but both, in summation, both of them are mostly Charlotte, but I don't think exclusively. So I don't know of one in town that just does Charlotte. If there is, respect, but I don't know who you are.
and the bands that you have on the roster of Four Finger, is there a particular sound that you guys are cultivating, or
no? It's been really random.
Yeah.
As of pre-COVID, when we were a lot more active, like two alt country bands, like two kind of synthy '80s kind of bands.
Really, that's good.
Yeah, like my weird instrumental band, and so yeah, it was a real like wide net. So I would say the Charlotte, there isn't much of a big cohesive sound here, but it is very creative. And that's what I love is like when you go to a local show, it's not going to be the same genre all night.
Yeah.
When I first moved here and like the metalcore thing was so big, you would go to Tremont and it would be 10 hardcore bands, whatever.
Right.
And you just have, by the end of the night, you're like, it's been the same song for 3 hours. And
that can happen with any style.
Oh,
though.
absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
As we were talking about earlier, I mean, not that I knocked the scene, just the Americana thing. You could, it was like, the Avett Brothers and Mumford & Sons hit, and then everybody all of a sudden turned over a night.
Everybody had a banjo.
Yeah, and you're like, what is going on?
I was in a few of those bands. I'm guilty, but yeah. Everybody had a banjo. So it happens with any genre. But I think right now it's a cool time for the Charlotte music scene, man. It's a lot of very creative bands doing their thing, and a lot of cool people coming out to support it.
So being in the scene, do you see that? Is there a dominant style that's in the scene?
Nothing's not lately, man. It doesn't seem to be popping out because I would say some of the bigger bands like Junior Astronomers is like a bigger kind of indie rock kind of like they're even hard to even put in a category. And there's bands that you could tell love them and grew up on them, and they're kind of maybe doing a similar thing, but even still, they're taking it their own direction,
And I don't know because I don't get out to see everybody all the time.
Oh, it's, yeah.
But I've heard that the jam scene is like this
Yeah.
huge thing in Charlotte.
Yeah,
like
it is.
Charlotte's kind of developing that.
And that's what's crazy, and that's why I always say like we're documenting our corner of it because it's like big, you know. Like there's a big like Leo also works at the Visual Light Theater mixing sometimes. He's like 3 times a week. It's like a local jam band, and it is packed. Like it's that scene is killing it, you know, too. And I'm like, I don't know much about that scene, but like that's rad, good for them, you know. And it definitely seems more like you have certain venues you go to, and you see the bands that play there, you know. So people are like, oh yeah, this band plays Coyote Joe's all the time, and they're awesome. I'm like, I've actually never been to a show there, but I hear it's a cool spot, you know. Like
there you go.
When I first moved here, it was all Tremont Music Hall, the Muse, and the Milestone. I went. If there was a band that seemed slightly interesting at one, I'd go. Yeah, you know, and they were always good to me and let my bands play. And so you know, you build relationships all over. But so I just think we have a really diverse, creative kind of scene cooking right now.
It is. I think it's really growing. We were talking before we started recording, and the Charlotte scene is exploding because I got here probably about the same time you did. Maybe you said you've been here about 16 years.
Yeah, like 2003.
Okay,
2002.
Got to be here before I did. I got here in 06, but there was just those 3 places, you know, what the Muse and Double Door and Smokey Joe's and Tremont, and that was kind of it.
Yep.
And now with the advent of the breweries, scene, there's music everywhere. But the only thing is, I don't think the breweries are as accepting as those other venues as original music.
Yeah, I agree.
Although I did mention, and I'll give them a shout out, Mike Grassi and Tommy Keys are doing a original music showcase on Tuesday nights at Stooges.
Yeah, that's awesome.
In Mint Hill.
Very cool.
So, but I think that's going to start to become more of a thing because I think there's also, I've heard of 2 places already, the Wine Loft and Homebrew in Monroe doing songwriter circles.
Oh, cool.
So there's a lot of stuff, you know, there's a lot of people trying to promote the original scene.
Yeah.
Which
really
is pretty cool.
I mean, to me, it's cooler that we can say that Charlotte doesn't have a sound.
Yes.
You know, because like you said, then it kind of eats itself and becomes a joke of itself.
Yes.
Whether it wants to or not. And there are exceptions to that, of course, too. But I love that you can't really put a finger on it.
Yeah.
You know? Because there was early 2000s, I was in a band called Public Radio, and we were starting to do okay, and we did the LA showcase thing, and we were touring our brains out, and the labels were kind of sniffing around. This band Paper Tongues got signed around then, and they were kind of same thing, like the cool indie rock thing that was happening around then. And so every band was kind of doing that same kind of Killers-esque, you know, kind of anything, which is rad, and I had a blast playing it, but I would definitely say for a while there it was like, yeah, you went to a show at Tremont and every band kind of sounded like, you know, the Killers a little bit. And, you know, I'm guilty as charged, but it's because we're like, oh man, like we heard Interscope's going to be at the show tonight. Right. You know, it was like that thing. And so it felt like the scene was getting a little more like homogenized. And then the next year, like you said, everybody was trying to sound like the Avett Brothers. And, you know, and it kind of kept going that way. And but there would always be there would always be highlights. Yeah. You know, in every scene. But I love now that it's more like, man, you go to a local show and you might know one of the bands, and the rest of the night you have no idea what you're in for, and it's so awesome. Right. Like you're in for a good night of music for sure.
I remember when I used to live in Ohio, I was in Cleveland, and I went to go see this band one night over at a place. It's a nationally known area. It's called the Grog Shop.
Oh yeah, I played there in November.
Go to a great place.
Yeah, great room, man.
I was at the original Grog Shop because it was down the block. So where you probably went was the newer place. They actually had an older venue down the block.
Very cool.
And so I showed up with my roommate at the time, and so we were going to see this band, and we had no idea that, you know, the band, we went the wrong night. Something happened, and we wound up seeing this Canadian band called the Tea Party. Okay. And we were like, these guys are freaking awesome.
That's awesome.
Like, holy crap, who are these guys? You know, is this the band we came to see? And then they announced who they were, and I looked at my neighbor, my roommate, I was like, who's this? And he's like, well, Tea Party. And we were just blown away. So sometimes you might go to a club one night and you just be like, these guys are fantastic.
Oh, absolutely, man. It's the best. It's the best. I love when that happens.
Hey, I got a question for you, Jeremy. Jeremy comes over, he brings me some swag.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, you know, it's mostly digital these days out of cost, you know, because it's just so expensive to print. But cassette tapes are coming back. People are buying them. Bands are making them. And, you know, like I think working bands kind of dictate the medium. And right now the cheapest way to put out music is cassette tape.
Right.
You'll have them in 2 months for like maybe $1.50 a tape.
Right.
And like people are buying them. And so we're like, sick, let's make tapes. And we recoup pretty quick every time.
The bands are also doing digital releases.
Yes,
too,
of course.
Sure.
And they come with a digital download too.
Right.
But then we did a rooftop show during COVID where people like drove up in their cars and we found a way to transmit it to the radio.
Yeah.
But also we had big speakers playing it so they could just let their windows down. So we recorded a song from each band and printed a 7-inch with that.
Sweet.
It was very cool. It took like 9 months to get it.
Wow.
And it was like, it was a big learning experience, but it was really good. It turned out sick. Like when they finally came in the mail, it was like I got choked up. I'm like, oh my God, this is our first, seeing our little logo on the back of a vinyl.
And you guys did you do 2 releases so far. You've done volume 1 and volume 2
of the cassette tape. Yep.
Yeah.
And then we did 2 Bandcamp compilations during quarantine era, COVID.
Awesome.
And so overall, counting the 7-inch, we've put out 5 like samplers.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Man.
It's been really cool, man.
So what can you just shout out a couple of the bands that are on the Four Finger label?
Yeah. So there's Fortune Teller, which is like really cool, like synth rock.
Mm-hmm.
The Wilt is really beautiful alt country. My band is my current active band is $1,000 Movie, and we're kind of shoegazy instrumental, a lot of cool like bass chords and like dreamy kind of textures.
We're going to check out some of your stuff in a couple minutes.
Oh, cool. Yeah, man. Thank you. There's Jude Moses, who I'm a huge fan of, and it's very like kind of Fleet Foxes, kind of indie folk. Their new record's coming out soon, and it's amazing. And Solis, who is my partner with the label, and his wife's band, is very kind of like cool analog synth heavy, like some drum machine stuff. It's very like Radiohead-esque, but with female vocals, and it's so beautiful. So those are kind of probably some of the more active ones right now. There's a few others too. There's Vess, and the newest one is called Siege.
Yeah.
And then all these bands have little side projects.
Of course, yeah.
that are like me and the singer of the Wilt just started a band called Coma Wife, and we're recording for that right now. And it's going to be very like the Stooges, Dinosaur Jr. kind of stoner punky stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of little subgenres
going
for
on
each band too. Yeah.
Just add one more thing before I want to talk to you about your band.
Yeah.
The bands that are on Four Finger, what's their success like? Are they doing just regional stuff right now? Are they staying local? Are they going a national? Traveling tours?
Most of them, and again, everybody was more active before COVID. Now everybody's kind of kicking the dust off, but. In most of those cases, everybody's at least playing around Carolina. Jude Moses is toured a little more extensively.
Yeah.
I would say they probably like are the most known with it. They've just got some great opening slots opening for bands, and so they've toured most of the states pretty hard.
Wow.
But everybody else is kind of like it's more local darlings. But it's still
that's okay.
Charlotte's so close to other rad cities; it's so easy to do Columbia, Charleston, Asheville, Raleigh, and so most of the bands are kind of working the local route like that.
Well, plus the reach, and I mean, you can get down to Georgia, you can get down to Atlanta, you can get up to DC.
Yeah, within 4 or 5 hours, you can play so many great little scenes. So, most of the guys are regularly doing like Winston-Salem, Columbia, etc. Myself included.
So let's talk about your band, $1,000 Movie. $1,000 Movie. Where did this title come? Where'd you get this name?
Well, also, just like the name of the label, it actually came from The Simpsons.
You're not a Simpsons fan,
yeah,
are you?
right. Yeah, and so they were Homer and Marge are watching TV, and it says tonight on ABC's $1,000 Movie. And I'll have a long list of potential band names because I start so many, so I just pop that in. And I thought that would be
awesome.
a great name for it. So so that's where the name came from.
Can we check out one of the tracks?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's check out this track. It's got a long title.
Yep.
It's called "I Can't Help But Feel Partly Responsible."
Yeah, that's true. I can't.
Let's check it out. This is my $1,000 Movie. Jeremy, that's some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah,
man.
thanks, man. I appreciate you.
But there's no lyrics. It's an instrumental track.
Yeah.
What's going on?
That is born of necessity, my friend, because the story of my career is, like, paying my bills being like the hired gun guy, the side mouse, whatever you want to call it,
right.
And I'm happy to be there. But every band I've ever started, as soon as we get some steam, the singer quits. Or the two singers someone has a baby and doesn't want to do a band anymore.
Right,
They move. Well, I always tell people, if you want someone to move out of Charlotte, have them start a band with me because they'll be in California in 6 months.
Oh my gosh.
And and a lot of times you could replace someone, and sometimes I didn't want to do that band without that person.
Right.
So I it's like, you know what? But I wrote a lot of the music and a lot of the lyrics and even some of the melodies, but I can't sing well. And so I was like, I'm going to start an instrumental band. And
that's
then
cool.
If anyone quits, they leave, whatever, I can replace them. It'll be great. I have my cats I prefer to play with, but if there's a show I want to do, I can say yes to it. And then sometimes I'm like, it's a different band almost backing me almost every time.
Okay.
Because I'm fortunate to know a lot of really killer musicians. So yeah, that's why I was like, I'm just gonna start an instrumental band, and then I don't need a singer.
Are you the one stable member in the band?
Yeah.
And everybody else is different. Is it different players on different tracks or different?
Yeah. So sometimes with a track, I'll always write like the bass parts and maybe some of the guitar parts and demo it.
Right.
And sometimes I'll think like, oh, who'd be great on this would be like this guy on guitar and this guy on drums, or
Right.
But obviously it's easier to have the same band often because you don't have to start from scratch every time. So I have my A squad, and then I start going down the list. And even like, they're all so good though. So it's like, it's all killer. But I have my preferred like guitar.
Your first call people.
Yeah.
Your first call. Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes I'll think in the studio, at least it's like every track, I'm kind of different cats. So it kind of depends on, it's like, oh man, this guy would be perfect for this. This guy would be perfect for it. And so, but that's a lot of fun for me, sometimes we'll come in and it'll just be, I'll have the bass riff and a basic arrangement and like, let's just start jamming on it. And they'll come up with some guitar part that totally is like, oh, this is taking the song to a totally different place.
Sweet.
It's such a fun like writing project. And that was kind of where it started. I was like, maybe I could pitch this for like licensing or something, because I got some friends that do that. But after I started writing, I was like, this would be so fun live. Like, I think it would be a blast live, and it has been. It's been one of my favorite endeavors.
Do you guys have or do you have a full length recording? Do you have?
We have an EP and like 4 or 5 singles.
That's awesome.
I'm working on a new EP now. Just started writing it. So yeah, a decent amount of music out, but it's really, when you start like a weird instrumental band, you're not sure who's going to be coming to the gigs. Like, I don't know what the demographic for this is.
Yeah,
but the feedback's been great. I mean, kind of all over the Southeast, we've been doing some shows, and so really good turnout. Some people seem like they're digging on it.
That's sweet. Can we check out the second track?
Yeah, absolutely, please.
All right, this is "Everything Lasts Forever" by $1,000 Movie. Jeremy, another super cool track.
Thank you, my friend. Yeah, that's one of my favorites. Yeah.
You don't get a lot of people doing instrumentals.
Yeah, and I grew up, there's a band called Unwed Sailor that's very similar to this. I'm a huge fan of, so I'm like, I loved going to their shows. It was a cinematic instrumental.
Right.
The bass cat was the leader of the band. So we actually got to open for them in August at Petra's. It was a blast because getting open for a band you've liked most of your life is always really cool.
Sure.
And when they're cool, and he was very kind to me. But it's like, I would say we were ripping them off, but I'm not good enough to play their parts. I'm doing my best guesstimation. Well, but there's actually there's a band called Cusco in town that's instrumental as well, which is really cool. So yeah, it's like there's a couple instrumental bands in town, oddly enough, but no, but it's cool. Like it's a very open-minded scene. People will come out and see a instrumental band doing Sonic Youth tunings on a bass.
It's nice to check out. I mean, I know when I put out my EP, shameless plug.
Yeah.
My friend listened to it and he sent me some commentary back, and he's like, I was kind of shocked. The last track not shocked. I shouldn't say shocked. He was like surprised. The last track you had was a solo acoustic
that's cool.
Instrumental track.
Oh, I love that.
And he's like, I liked it. He's like, I just didn't expect it. You had this, and then all of a sudden at the end I get this solo acoustic track. And I was like, thanks, man.
Yeah, very
cool.
Cool.
It's nice to kind of do it. And you know what? I think it harkens back to, for me at least, listening to acoustic, some of my old favorite bands, Led Zeppelin or Black Sabbath, those guys would always have some kind of acoustic so instrumental thing.
Right.
Yeah,
they'd hit it at the end with some like reverse delay or something, but they always had these cool little interludes, like I love that stuff. Yeah.
Or even like you guys doing just full out instrumental stuff. I mean, Rush used to do that kind of stuff too.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool things.
Yeah. Iron Maiden would always have an instrumental song.
Yeah. It's kind of neat stuff.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's a fun way to write. It's challenging. Like some of the drummers that come in are always like, I really got to practice these songs because you don't have the lyrics or the chorus to kind of ground you.
Right.
And so I was like, well, sorry, I wasn't trying to write them hard, but.
And it seems more challenging in a rock aspect because, you know, that's kind of almost the mainstay in jazz.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Or classical, of course.
And we will like improv some, like once we get to this part, we'll stay on it until I cue you.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun. Those shows are a lot of fun for me. And, I think that comes across to people too,
Hey, there's one thing I wanted to talk about with you that you mentioned, and I was just like, I didn't know you did this.
Yeah.
It's the Gigantic Recording Company.
Yes.
That sounded so cool. Can you fill us in on it?
Yeah, thanks, man. So that's a recent endeavor with Leo, again, my longtime collaborator, and also drummer we've worked with a lot named Dominic Geralds. And we all do a lot of recording at home for artists, especially during COVID. A lot of people were just emailing tracks.
Right.
And like, hey, I need you to play bass in the song. I'll send you the demo, the BPM. It's in the key of G. Lay down your bass and send it back to us. We're all doing so much of it, and a lot of our friends were too. We're like, one thing no one's doing is like, what if we started a little crew with the three of us, and we'll give it a cool name and a cool logo, which our friend Rico that works for Marvel Comics did the logo for us. So it's dope. And like a flat rate, like you send us a demo, we play all the instruments and a mix and master, and you just have to be able to record your keeper vocals from home and send that to us. And we'll kick it back and forth so everybody's happy with the parts, the arrangements. Tell us what kind of genre you're going for. Maybe send us some influences. And we're getting everything from like, Bob Dylan to Nine Inch Nails, And so it's like awesome. Every song is a totally different genre, which is creatively has been a lot of fun. And so we officially got that cooking about 6 months ago, and it's done like really well for us. Like it was enough to where we could all quit a lot of the COVID jobs we picked up.
Yeah.
With touring stopping, we're all like bartending. I was delivering papers, working at a record store, so helping a friend of mine sell comic books online.
That's
like
great.
I was just doing whatever to keep the lights on.
Sure, man.
It was grateful for some satellite work, but when we kind of made a little crew out of it, I think people really responded to that, and we really pushed like, just do a song. Let's do a song. Let's do a single. It's a lot less daunting than you need a $10,000 Kickstarter to do a full length. Like, you've been stuck at home for 2 years. You probably got some songs. Do a single.
Yeah.
Let's do it. And it's been cool. Like you have people that they don't have a backing band. They don't know they're musicians.
Sure.
They don't even know where to start sometimes. Yeah. And they could just send us a demo to a click track and we knock it out for them. And I think again, it goes back to the DIY ethos of like music in the hands of the people. It's like empowering a little bit,
That's the thing today is there's people who lament the dying of the major record labels, and there was something to it to being able to curate the music. But we have never had a time where musicians have been so empowered and free.
Yeah,
it's difficult. Because most bands today are, if they weren't before, DIY, like everything.
Absolutely. No, it has its own set of challenges, but the fact that you can make a record with a guy in California all from the comfort of your own house is crazy. Like,
yes.
You could barely do that 15 years ago. You know,
there's Steve Stokel. He plays with the Sponge Tones, and he used to do electronics repair.
Yep.
Steve has a band called the Pop Co-op, and he calls them as what is it? Regionally, I think displaced.
Okay.
Everybody's in a different city in the band.
Oh,
so they just record, and that's almost like the thing today.
Yeah.
Like just bands putting stuff together. I mean,
right.
You even see images of bands, quote unquote, I'll use my fingers, put together, and they're not even the same room taking a picture.
No,
the picture is each individual, and it's all photoshopped together to make the band.
Absolutely.
Isn't it crazy?
Well, Jude Moses, one of the Four Finger Bands, the drummer lives in Seattle. Actually, the rest of them are Charlotte Cats. They just love working with him so much. His name's Jesse Proctor. He's a brilliant musician and produces. And so they use different drummers for shows.
Right.
But they flew him out to do the record, and then they flew out to Seattle and did a little bit out there, which is always fun when you can afford to do something like that.
Yeah.
But, and so, but they're very much by proxy with like sending stuff. And it's like, man, it's just the good old days were rad in other ways, but in a lot of ways, it's so much easier to do stuff now. You know,
it is, and it's really interesting to see that it's the Wild West right now.
Right.
I don't. Everybody I talk to, it's just I don't think anybody really knows what's going on.
No, we're all anyone that says they do is full of crap. I think like we're all seat of our pants. You know, like which I get it. This girl sent us a song. She had like lyrics and a melody idea basically, and recorded it to a click and sent that to us. And she's like, I don't know, maybe something kind of like this kind of a genre. And we're like, cool. And we wrote all the parts and jammed it out, and she loved it. And we're like, man, like. It's just so cool that someone had this little song idea and now this thing's coming to life.
Yeah.
You know, and that was so hard to do not that long ago, you know.
Well, I could speak for myself, and you've been doing it a while, so you probably knew all this stuff already, but when I put out my EP, it was interesting because, like, I had to do all this research on what to do.
Right.
You know, I've got to copyright it. How do I do the distribution? How does this work? How does that work? I'm paying these musicians. I got to make sure, I have their signature on paper to see that they're not collecting royalties on this and this is how this done.
Yeah.
They just got paid for studio work.
Right.
It's like, oh my gosh, there's so much to just learn if you've never done it before.
Totally. It's very daunting. And so for someone to like come in and maybe not like know all the lingo and all this stuff, and like this one guy was like, yeah, I'm hesitant because I did a similar thing with some like Nashville guys. Not dogging Nashville, even though they're an easy target.
Yeah.
but the cat happened to live there. He's like, they made me feel dumb if I asked questions, and they like, if I didn't like a part, they convinced me that it was the best part and all this stuff. And I was like, man, that sucks. Like, you should have a great experience.
Yeah.
And I was like, we have no ego. We're a bunch of ding dongs. I don't know how I ended up doing this in the first place. Like, there are no dumb questions. Like.
Yeah.
And so we're a little more like disarming with people too, like we don't have to take everything so seriously. Like most of our little videos we put out are kind of hilarious, and we try to be silly, and cause that's what I am. Like I can't pretend to be this like, uptight, serious musician, cause I'm a ding dong, so like, I gotta be a corn dog. And,
I think those cats are just trying to make money as quick as they can. And I'm not dogging anybody. I'm just saying that
for sure. It's a different animal.
They know when they go into the studio, like, I had Jim Brock on last month, and Jim was telling me about, like in Nashville, they want to do a song an hour,
absolutely.
and this is the way it is. And, somebody goes in and they're like, I didn't like that part. Like, dude, we do this every day.
Right.
We got to schedule.
It's like
to
somebody
keep,
sending the food back to the kitchen when you're a chef.
Yeah. I mean, can you put a little more salt on it? Look, there was just the right amount of salt on this, and the next patient's coming in 5 minutes, so you got to go.
And I get it. You get picky artists, and sometimes it's a little like, come on, man, it's good. It's, but at the same time, like I just at the end of the day, like, don't want anybody to ever feel like dumb or something for not it's like we all had to learn it. We all had to learn what this meant or that meant, or like
look, man, there's that old adage, there's no dumb questions, only dumb answers.
I was fortunate to have a lot of very kind older people when I was younger that was patient with me when I was learning all the lingo and all this stuff, and And I want to pay that forward, you know?
Yeah. I mean, everybody's got to learn, you know, and just because you have all the knowledge and you've done it a million times,
Right.
sometimes you get a little frustrated. Like I'm a teacher and I know that, you know, if my kids ask a question, I always have to remember, you know, and not get frustrated by the question because I've done it 1,000 times already. And I'm like, really? Right. I got to tell this. Okay. You don't know. So let me explain. This is how this is going to work. And this is how this is to happen.
Yeah. Right.
And, you know, there's just that part of thing as you get older, you just want to impart your knowledge a little bit.
Yeah,
don't just
totally
be a jerk about it.
No, totally,
you know?
man. And, yeah, like I said, it's like, I had people that were so kind and with their time to me. Like, 'cause when I'm in Charlotte, I barely knew a major scale. I was in little crappy punk bands.
Yeah.
You know, and, I was still getting asked to play on some records or do this or that with like, people, you know, I think they realized pretty quickly, like, oh, okay, this guy's got a lot of spirit, but not a lot of skill, you know. But everybody needs a bass player, man. You got 4 strings and you show up on time, you'll get gigs. Yep. I learned that quick,
yep.
you know. So I was learning on the job, and I was very grateful for teachers, you know. So yeah, I'm trying to be the same. Like if someone's like, man, this is a great song, you obviously don't know that you need to record in 48 gigahertz and you know all this stuff, and like it's like I'm not. Like, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You know, that's still, I don't totally know all the lingo. I just know how to make it sound pretty good.
Yeah.
Leo's the man for that. But yeah, so anyway, it's like just being cool to people and like let them have a good experience, and they're getting a song out of it and they're stoked, you know, and
it's music.
Yeah. And
enjoy it.
And they're coming back, you know, like a lot of people keep coming back to us too, which is great. So
yeah. Hey, before we start wrapping stuff up, I had one more question to ask you about Four Finger.
Yeah.
You guys do a podcast.
Yeah. We, kind of in general with everything now that things are reopening, because the heart of what we did was like throwing events and shows and gigs, and when that all went away, it was kind of like we felt a little aimless with the label. Other than we did some rad quarantine compilations that we're really proud of. We kind of challenged everybody to just record some songs at home and do the thing like we were just talking about with Gigantic, but like everybody in the comfort zone home. So we put those on Bandcamp, and they turned out really rad. We were really stoked on them. But then one thing that we did a lot was we a few times, or I don't know, it seemed like semi-monthly we do a podcast, the radio show, and Four Finger Radio, and we would just play Charlotte bands, and me and Leo would tell like some funny tour stories, which we have a lot of, and we try to have a band on and interview them and have them play some songs in the studio even. Yeah. And it was a lot of fun. So yeah, we just did a new one again last week. One of the first ones since all the what have you. So
how often do you do them on a regular basis, or you just kind of release them when you want?
I think we release them when we want. Yeah. Cause we're all busy bees, but Jude Moses has a new album coming out. So we're like, let's do another show. We'll have them on, interview them, and they can
sweet
play some songs from the new album. And so yeah, it was really fun to do it again because me and Leo are both kind of silly boys, so we like just telling funny stories and being, you know. But also we talk about the scene a lot, probably ad nauseum to some people, but we love it so much. I love Charlotte so much, so it's just cool.
It's a great town, man.
It is, man, and so it's just really rad to. Some cats might check us out because we play for some band that they liked, and they follow us on Instagram, and they're like, "Oh, these guys did a radio show," and it's not just bands we work with. We'll play, you know, I saw this band at Snow Harbor last night. I got their record, and I really love them. Like, here's the song, you know?
Right.
And I always kind of wanted to be a DJ, like growing up in the time where radio was still a thing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I love doing it. I'd love to do it more regularly, but maybe we will. But yeah, there's a new one out, Four Finger Radio on the what have yous
franchise.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I love it. Just podcasting is a lot of fun. So.
Yeah, man. This has been awesome. I love doing it.
So, Jeremy, as we start to wrap things up, man, how do we get in touch with you? How do we get in touch with Four Finger? Fill us in.
Yeah, so we're I think we're all mostly active on Instagram. So $1,000 movie at $1,000 movie is on there, and then I'm Jeremy Radio on the gram. Same with Four Finger Records. We also have fourfingerrecords.com. Yep.
And you'll have to do what I did just in case, because it doesn't come up right away on the Google search.
But we also have a Bandcamp with merch, and you can buy the physical releases there.
It's awesome.
And $1,000 Movies is on all the streams and Bandcamp and everything as well. And Gigantic Recording Co. is our at Gmail. You can contact us, but also we're Gigantic Recording Co. on Instagram as well.
Sweet.
Which is our most preferred way to communicate.
And I'll put links in the show notes to all
Killer.
those for
you.
you
Yeah,
guys.
thanks, man. So that's most of my recent endeavors, but I cast a wide net. I don't like days off.
Got to keep busy, man.
I know, man.
Being a musician.
I want to play bass every day with somebody. So.
Well, I mean, you just have to have multiple streams of income today.
Also
It's just the way
true,
it
man.
works, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man, it means a lot you having me on. It was really, really cool chatting with you. You know, I talk a lot, so I don't mind having a microphone in front of me.
Well, thanks again, man. You have enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Yeah, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the 56th episode of the Queen City Music Podcast. And I hope you'll go back and check out past episodes. You can find the QCMP on all your favorite streaming platforms. As always, if you have an idea for an episode or would like to be a guest on the QCMP, reach out to me at qcmusicpodcast@gmail.com. Also, check out our local partners, Records on the Wall at rexonthewall.com. Reporting from 20XX at reportingfrom20xx.wordpress.com. Queen City Live at Instagram.com/Queen City Live Music. And our newest partner, Charlotte New Music at charlottenewmusic.org. Until next month, be well and stay safe.